Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The Women's Reservation Bill is currently being discussed in Rajya Sabha and soon will be put to vote as well. With that, the Nari Shakti Bill, which was passed in Lok Sabha on Wednesday with 454 MPs voting in favour of it, will become an act and finally a reality. Earlier today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hailed the passage of this historic reservation bill in the Lok Sabha and said that it was a golden moment in India's parliamentary journey. The legislation is now widely expected to get the approval of the upper house as well. The bill will then require the approval of a majority of the state assemblies, and then the law will be put into effect possibly by 2029 general elections after the next census and the delimitation exercise is also completed. But the opposition has been pressurizing the government to make sure that this bill can be implemented as soon as the next general elections, which are of course barely 8 months to go in 2024. They don't want the clause on the delimitation or the census to be included. In fact, Congress MPs have even moved amendments in Rajya Sabha as we speak, both on the issue of delimitation and also on the issue of the OBC quota. Well, while that is a demand that has been made, remember, it has also been noted by the government that the delimitation and the census have to be brought in for this bill to become an act that will actually have some future, because other than that, it can come into legal hurdles as well. And while there is lateral and vertical reservation in this case, as far as the women are concerned, it is important to complete these steps to ensure that this happens. Now, this is the 7th attempt since 1996 to get the Women's Reservation Bill passed. All parties have been supporting this quota since day one, but it got rejected several times as there was no quota for OBC women in the bill. So why do we feel the need to have 33% women candidates? While all participants, all parties support this, why is it that there has not been an intention to support, without the need of this bill, 33% candidature for women candidates as far as political parties are concerned? Now, some have led in that, but not really all. The question that we want to ask today is that while the bill gets an approval in both houses of parliament, also kicks in, and of course will come into effect possibly by 2029, can we see a scenario where political parties lead from the front and actually give 33% candidature to women from their parties for the upcoming 2024 Lok Sabha polls? If they feel so strongly for it, will they do so voluntarily? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. But even as India is all set to have 33% reservation in parliament, I want to break down what the scenario looks for other countries, especially in and around India, that is in Asia. So take a look at other countries in Asia that also have reservation for women. Nepal, our neighbor, is the other country that has reservation as much as 33%. Countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh have a reservation of 17 to 14% respectively, while Philippines has a reservation of 28%. Let me also give you a global perspective why reservation for women is actually a global phenomena in national parliaments and what is the scenario as far as women parliamentarians are concerned. So there are 26.5 women parliamentarians in the world, which is up from 11% in 1995. So in the last 30 years, this percentage has more than doubled. There are 6 countries in the world that have more than 50% women elected representatives. There are 23 other countries in the world that have reached the 40% representatives mark. But at the current rate, it is believed that gender parity in legislative bodies will still take decades more, at least till 2063. And that could be possibly the biggest case for reservations, because the change is not happening fast enough organically otherwise. Now in India too, politically, even if representation has been low, there's been an increasing voice of women voters in elections. So women voters have in fact risen by over 5% since 2019 elections, and this increase is greater than the increase that we have witnessed in male voters. We are also increasingly witnessing that more women voters are coming out to vote than men. Female vote also cuts through communal or polarizing narratives, and they are also the key beneficiaries of social welfare schemes of many governments, not just the central government under Narendra Modi, but also many state governments, and are therefore being catered to quite aggressively. And they tend to vote on key issues of social progress, last mile development, and law and order, as we've seen in the past. So no wonder that political parties are, of course, wooing the woman voter. They are wooing them quite aggressively. But will they also follow as far as their speech is concerned? Will they walk the talk in also nominating 33% of women from their parties as far as the next election is concerned, even if this reservation doesn't kick in by the time the next election comes? We'll take that question to our guests in just a minute.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी का इंटेंशन कोई अपने आप को स्कोर करने का नहीं, कोई पॉलिटिकल एडवांटेज लेने का नहीं है। हमारा उद्देश्य महिलाओं का सही मायने में सशक्तिकरण करने का।
इसका अमेंडमेंट करने का कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। जब पंचायत में रिजर्वेशन के लिए होता है, जिला पंचायत का होता है, तो ये वुमेन रिजर्वेशन का क्यों नहीं होता?
9.5 साल ही सही, थोड़ा विलंबित सोच ही सही, we will certainly support women reservation bill in this house with all our criticism.
कोई रोड मैप नहीं और ये बिल पास किया जा रहा है। एक बड़ी आबादी को आपने खारिज कर दिया।
Let's go across to our guests joining us. Anila Singh of the BJP with us, Meeta Chakrabarti from the Congress Party, also Meghna Pant is author with us on the larger import of this women's reservation bill. Anila Singh, let me begin with you. A lot of political parties have been questioning both the intent and the timing of this bill brought in by the BJP, one at the fag end of your second term, and secondly the intent because the reservations will not kick in anytime before 2029 general elections at least. How would you respond on both those charges?
My Ram to all, better late than never. I know one thing, and I know one thing for sure, that since 1996 this battle is on. Though I will say that this battle is forever for any woman. It is not new. We have to fight for our survival, and history is the witness. But the thing is, we are fighters. We had been fighting for our rights. We are fighting for the rights, and in the future also we will keep on fighting, because it is the matter of our existence. And I will say so that in 2010, when this bill was passed in Rajya Sabha, what happened? What happened? Why didn't it pass in Lok Sabha? What UPA government was doing? In which pressure Ms. Sonia Gandhi came? And this bill was never ever got passed in Lok Sabha. So it is very easy to point out finger. It is very easy to criticize, and it is very difficult for opposition to stand together and vote for something which
the opposition has stood with you.
For the empowerment of women.
No, let's be fair. The opposition has stood with you. Yesterday in Lok Sabha, 454 out of the 456 parliamentarians present voted in favour. Only 2 parliamentarians voted against it. So the opposition has wholeheartedly supported you, but they have of course questioned whether this reservation could have kicked in sooner. But I'll come back to you. Let me go across to Meeta Chakrabarti as well. In fact, the converse also applies to parties like yourself, Meeta, the Congress Party leading the opposition, that one, even during your tenure of the UPA, you couldn't ever pass this bill. Your leaders accepted that there wasn't enough consensus even within the UPA alliance partners. Secondly, there was no OBC quota at that time. You rejected those demands as the government, even though you raised them today. And the question that arises is that while you support this bill, you're also seeking to undercut the government's efforts when they should deservedly get the credit for not just getting the bill, but also getting it passed.
Okay, good evening to all your viewers, and good evening to my fellow panelists as well, co-panelists. First of all, yes, it has been a long-standing demand of the Congress Party to get the women reservation bill passed. If you look at the history as how in the panchayat level and urban local bodies, as how the reservation was introduced, the idea was introduced by late former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi ji, and then later implemented by PV Narasimha Rao ji, and how we managed to get it passed in 2010 during UPA 2. Yes, we didn't have the numbers. We could not build up the consensus. That's a fact. And we failed to pass it in the Lok Sabha. Now, having said that, in 2017, in 2018, our former Congress presidents, both Mrs. Sonia Gandhi ji and Mr. Rahul Gandhi, had written multiple times to the Prime Minister of the day requesting for this bill to be tabled and to be passed. Even when this bill was being tabled, we have emphasized and we have said that we are going to give our unconditional support to the passage of this bill. And we have voted in favor of this bill. So first of all, yes, we stand by this bill. We have always wanted the woman reservation to become a reality. And yes, as a responsible political organization, we are well within our rights to give suggestion back to the government of the day. And that's exactly what we have done.
No, it's not about suggestions. No, one second, Meeta, I'll just come in. It's not about suggestions. One, there's a U-turn by the Congress party on the OBC position. When you did not include OBC quota, when you were trying to build this, bring this bill in, of course, questions will be asked why you are raising it today as if this government is unwilling to do so when you yourself quoted legal issues as far as implementing an OBC quota within the women's reservation is concerned. So it's not about suggestions. It's about the fact that the Congress seems a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that while you may have been the one leading the charge on a women's reservation bill, ultimately it has happened under a Modi government.
No, not at all. In fact, we wanted it to be passed a long time back. So we go back to fundamental query that you had a brute majority in the Lok Sabha for the past 9 years. Why did it take you 9 long years to table this bill? Having said that, our concerns are twofold. One is why link it to delimitation? Bear in mind, delimitation is not going to be a very simple, straightforward exercise. We already have a lot of misgivings in the southern part of the country where they think that they will be in the wrong receiving end of this delimitation exercise. And we have, it is not going to be a very straightforward and simple exercise. So now we do not even know if this can be implemented in 2029. Forget about 2024. We know it's not going to be implemented before the next general election. Perhaps it will only get implemented before 2034.
So are you not convinced by the government's arguments? The Home Minister has spoken on this. The government has given an argument. Yes, once again, I want to ask you, are you not convinced with the government's arguments on why the delimitation is necessary?
No, it has to be done in a time-specific manner. First of all, even without delimitation, this reservation could have been implemented. See, the percentage is fixed. It's 33%. Delimitation will possibly lead to greater number of parliamentarian constituencies. So if 33% of this number or 33% of an increased number, the percentage of reservation remains a constant.
No, I believe the government has made a different point. The government has made a point that the census is required and a delimitation is required to trigger and to kick in any more reservations.
Why not have a specific timeline?
Okay. Let Anila Singh respond to that. Then I have to go across to Meghna Pant as well. Anila ji, the same question I asked you as well. Yes.
Shivani, I want to make 2 quick points here. It is a rhetoric from opposition. अरे भाई आप लोगों ने 9.5 साल क्या किया? What you were doing for 9.5 years? Why you were not able to pass women reservation bill? We had asked you that if you bring this bill, we are going to give you unconditional support. Let me ask Ms. Meeta here that have you ever raised your voice? Your means your political party or your allied partners. For once, you have done dharna, protest, walkouts for Adani, Ambani, Pegasus, Rafale, and so many matters. Not for once.
Can I answer that?
Not for once, Sonia Gandhi or Mr. Rahul Gandhi or any of the political party leaders of yours, they did protest, they did walk out on women issue. Of course not. So do not try to preach us.
No, but the delimitation issue.
And secondly, yes, this is mandatory. As Honorable Minister and Honorable Party President, they both have conveyed that why it is necessary. आप आनंद फानन में ले आइए और सुप्रीम कोर्ट में जाके कोलैप्स हो जाए, क्या फायदा? कांग्रेस पार्टी ने, यूपीए अलायंस ने, in 2014 they had given reservation to Jats in center. Then what happened? It was not done properly. It got challenged in Supreme Court, and reservation was snatched away from Jats. So we do not want anything which can be challenged in Supreme Court and then it collapses.
Okay.
Whatever we want to do, we want to do it in a very proper way.
No,
So
once
it goes
again.
Can you give me 10 seconds to revert to that?
Yes, Meeta ji, very quickly, I want to go across to Meghna also.
We have written multiple times to the Prime Minister of the day requesting for this passage of the bill. We absolutely stand committed to the bill, and that's the reason why we want it to be implemented right now and not given a future vague promise of its implementation some 10 years down the line. Number one. Number two, yes, we have asked for quota for quota. I think we are well within our rights to give that suggestion to the government of the day, but that has not stopped us from voting in favor of this bill.
Fair enough.
Let's be very clear. We have given two suggestions, and those two suggestions to only make this bill a stronger bill, make it a stronger representation of women coming from different strata of the
Okay, I'll come back to the OBC issue in some time because, we've discussed this over the last couple of days. I want to go across to Meghna also on the issue that I really want to focus on today, Meghna, because while the bill has been passed in Lok Sabha yesterday, it will get passed in Rajya Sabha. Effectively, it will be passed and become a reality. The question that arises is that all parties are saying implement it now. There is a very easy way to do that. And the easiest way to do that is that in your next candidate list for 2024, you voluntarily give 33% of the tickets to women. And it will become a reality. Do you think that will happen?
Yeah. I hope it happens because, politics is India's Bermuda Triangle for women. We can all concede, I think, that female representation is very low in parliament and therefore decision making. And these are the key indicators of empowerment, of progress and equality. There have been so many studies that have been quoted over and over again for the last few days about only 12% of women present in parliament, about the fact that, as you mentioned, Shivani, that even countries like Nepal and Saudi have more women in politics than we do. So we've been waiting for this bill to be passed, to reserve these 33% of seats since almost 1996. It's been more than 2 decades. So it's great that the BJP has now shown the interest, the initiation, but it's done it with so many caveats. For example, was mentioned, the delimitation exercise based on the census data. We have no timeline on that. If you're asking for votes the next year, then how can you derail this for, say, 5 more years? 2029 is people are speaking more. There also needs to be more intersectionality that has been also mentioned. Women from marginalized communities and minorities should also have equal access and representation like OBC reservations. This is important, especially because the sub-quota for SC/ST has been included. Now, why?
That's because the SC/ST quota exists at the parliament level. There's no OBC quota at the parliament level.
And, we should not forget one thing that, men have, I know politics is an old boys club in India, but let's not forget that men have historically in India been powerful allies for India's feminist movement also. So if you had a Sarojini Naidu asking for women's voting rights, you had a Raja Ram Mohan Roy also abolishing sati. So if you had a Savitri Bai Phule fighting for caste education and social upliftment, you also had a Mahatma Gandhi starting the Stree Shakti movement. So let's remember we're all in this together. Our country needs to progress, and that will only come when women come into power, more so in decision making, important.
The point that I'm trying to raise, Meghna, is that it's all good to fight for the implementation right here, right now, as political rhetoric. But nobody is stopping the political parties from actually giving 33% of their tickets to women. Fundamentally, it shouldn't really be about the law alone for you to do what you believe is right.
And also women, I think, have to vote for women. When I go to vote, I find that most of the candidates are male almost all the time. So I think we have to take a collective call as, unite in our gender to become a vote bank. So I think that's another way that women can lift other women up. And if you've seen historically in politics in India, there's so many gatekeepers, including women themselves. Women are scared to enter politics. How do we do away with these gatekeepers? How do we make it a more inclusive and safe space? There have to be protocols. There have to be, checks and balances put into place. And that also has to be initiated by the government as we're talking of this.
Okay. I want to go across to our political representatives one more time. Meeta Chakravarti, I'm coming to you. The Congress party has been, for the last 2 to 3 days been saying implemented now, implemented now, implemented now. Why don't you give 33% of your tickets to women starting the next elections? Will that happen?
Very, very, very valid query, and I absolutely applaud you for asking that. The reason why we need a reservation is because over the past several decades, despite a section of leadership having the right intention, it has not happened in any political party. Barring maybe one or two elections and barring in one or two regional parties, it has not happened in Congress, it has not happened in BJP. And yes, we had Priyanka Gandhi ji saying "Ladki hu, lad sakti hu" in UP, where she ensured that 40% reservation is made, 40% of the tickets are given to female candidates. So yes, we have had such examples within the Congress party. I'm sure there had been examples in other parties as well. But fact is, by and large, and this is across the political spectrum, this has not happened, and hence demand for reservation. Hence the demand. And it's not easy being a woman in today's political space. In India, we do need a bigger representation because we need more inclusive policy making process. We need more inclusive governance. And hence it is a requirement of the nation, and hence the demand for reservation.
No, Neeta, while I appreciate what you're saying, and while I appreciate what you're saying and you're being candid in what you're saying, this is exactly why sometimes people have difficulty trusting what politicians are saying, because they say one thing and they do quite another. Anila ji, I want to ask you the same question. If BJP stands for, a Nari Shakti so much, and fine, you can take all the credit you want for the bill passing finally after 30 long years of fight, but you also have to show the forward movement by reserving 33% of tickets in your party for elections for women. And that's when the public will believe that yes, political parties actually believe in this cause.
I totally agree with you, because if I talk about any of the political line, then definitely so much of insecurity is there. Women do not get tickets to contest elections. Because one of the reasons is society is so patriarchal. It is so difficult for many to accept that women can fight, they can contest, and they can give good leadership in the constituency. Usually the constituencies which comes under B or C category, they are being given to the women. Yes, like go ahead and contest election. If you win, well and good. If you do not, then what to do? हमने तो कोटा पूरा कर दिया था महिलाओं को टिकट देने का. This happens in each and every political party in this nation, in our country, and not in our country. It happens in each and every country in this world. I very well remember one dialogue of Margaret Thatcher. After becoming Prime Minister, she went to meet the Queen, and Queen asked her, Ms. Thatcher, now you are the Prime Minister of Britain. Try to bring more and more women in your cabinet. And do you know what answer she gave? She said, no. Why? She said, because women are delicate. They cannot take strong decisions. Being a woman prime minister, she had this mindset. So that has to be changed. Society also.
So will you lead?
Very
I understand all of that. Anila ji, the question I'm trying to get an answer for is, are parties like yourself, BJP, the biggest party in the world, as you say, will you lead by example? Will you give 33% of your tickets to women in the next big Lok Sabha elections?
शिवानी जी, अगर आप अनिला सिंह से कहें तो मैं कहूंगी कि भाई 50% दे दीजिए, 50% दे दीजिए. But I told you the raw reality of the politics in our country. Last time also, if you compare that, how many tickets were given to women by different political parties, number one was TMC.
Yes.
TMC gave almost 37%. Congress and Bharatiya Janata Party were almost equal, some 12% something. So this is the reality. We know it very well. That is why we want reservations.
So basically, so basically reservation होगा तो ही होगा, वरना नहीं करेंगे. You know, this is exactly what I was trying to point out, and Meghna, I want you to weigh in on this as well. Why is it that the political parties are unwilling to do what they're asking for by virtue of law, but not on their own? Ideally, things should be easier to do voluntarily than if you're being forced by a law.
Absolutely, but I think that, women should fight back. Let's not fall for any claptrapping or any of that. I think we have enough agency, we have enough awareness, we have enough power now to take the reins in our own hands. So let's break down all the gatekeepers gatekeepers to politics, the character assassination that has always been used as a weapon to deter women from entering politics, the male-dominated political parties that are creating conditions for women to keep them out. Nothing is going to change for women who fight their way, into politics and fight to have a voice. So I think let's go and make history. Let's become extremely thick-skinned to survive in politics and to thrive in politics. And we're not comfortable as a society seeing women in power. So let's change that narrative. I think women.
India is a very unique example, actually. I don't quite like running down my country so much, but I would say we are a unique example where we've had a female prime minister.
Exactly.
We've had female presidents. As far as
chief ministers.
We've had female chief ministers. As far as a lot of other markers of different areas of life, walks of life are concerned, Indians actually do very well. We've got, for example, our statistics often quoted more female pilots than most advanced countries. And even today, even in a country like USA, which according to Modern Times is the oldest democracy, talk of a female president is considered impossible. Right? So, those mindsets exist everywhere. I don't think that we should be too critical, because in many areas we are very forward. For example, when it comes to the rights of women as far as abortion in the country is concerned, but I don't want to go into that, area. There are different sets of challenges for all countries. I want to give 30 seconds each to our political representatives. Meeta Chakrabarti, reservation or no reservation, what will it take to break down some of those barriers that female politicians face? Because I think it's not enough to just reserve seats for them. They have to be given the dignity even after the reservation.
I think, as you correctly pointed out, patriarchy is not only a problem of India alone. It exists everywhere. And I think a woman has to work doubly hard and has to be very aggressive, especially in the political space, in order to make an impact. Now, that's a fact. And fact is that, especially if the woman is not coming from a political background, he's not a big politician's wife or daughter, it becomes even more challenging. If someone has joined politics, like I did from the corporate world, it becomes even more challenging. So yes, a reservation is definitely a very good starting point.
Okay. Anila ji, I'm running out of time. I'm sorry. Anila ji, I'll give you 30 seconds.
There has to be changing the mindset as well.
Yeah, so what do we do for that mindset? Anila ji was candid enough to accept the mindset is not ready. So mindset पे तो change करना पड़ेगा ना?
बिल्कुल. Shivani ji, one thing good happened, when this women reservation bill got introduced in the parliament. So all the women member of parliament, they have got chance to speak in parliament. Just see the power of reservation. They got the chance to speak in parliament. We can see new faces. As of MP, we never recognized them, but today we saw on television speaking in parliament. And secondly, I just want to say one thing here. All those political parties who are claiming that OBC women reservation should be there, the political parties who do the politics of OBC or the Dalits, what they have they set any example? If you check their facts, you will come to know that of course not. They have not encouraged any of the common OBC women or Dalit women. They want women, even if she's coming from OBC or the Dalit background, which is rich. If I talk about Samajwadi Party, 14 from Uttar Pradesh, there are 14 MLAs, women MLAs from Samajwadi Party, and they all are crore-patis.
Okay,
so this is
interesting point you're raising. So, the fundamental point is we raised women reservation, we raised the fact we want it now, but we're not willing to voluntarily give them 33% of seats. Nobody's stopping. We want OBC quota, but no, we don't want to give OBC women tickets as it stands today. Nobody is stopping political parties. So there is, of course, a dissonance and a large gap between what political parties are preaching versus what they're saying. But we hope that with this women's reservation bill finally getting passed in both houses of parliament, the mindset will change within political parties also, so that they do from the next election what they're asking for by virtue of law. I've run out of time. I do thank all of our guests for joining us for our top debate. We'll of course continue to track the latest as far as the women's reservation bill is concerned, but moving to the other big story we've been tracking this week. Diplomatic relations between Canada and India continue to nosedive days after Justin Trudeau's allegations that India was behind wanted criminal Hardeep Nijjar's killing in Canada. After a diplomat each was sent back, travel advisories by both countries yesterday. Today, India suspended visa processing till further notice for those wanting to visit India from Canada. Meanwhile, Canada missions have asked for more security of their diplomats in India, alleging threat to them, while also saying that they are adjusting the staff strength in India. Let me break down what the Indian Ministry of External Affairs has said today on the entire episode with Canada. So firstly, on stopping the visa service, the MEA has said that due to threats that Indian diplomats have been facing in Canada, day-to-day working has become difficult. Remember, there have been threats issued quite openly online against Indian diplomats working in Canada. So therefore, they will review as this goes along. The Indian MEA has also revealed that they brought up parity in diplomatic presence with Canada and asked for their numbers to be reduced as they were higher than India's numbers in Canada. On the allegations made by Canadian Prime Minister, MEA said that these allegations are politically motivated. No specific evidence has been shared by Canada as far as the Nijjat killing is concerned. Meanwhile, the MEA stressed that our information, the information that India has provided, has not been acted upon by Canada. Remember, India has been raising specific cases of wanted criminals who have taken refuge in Canada for many decades now. The MEA even said today the larger issue is terrorism, terror funding and safe havens in Canada. This is a big statement given that we have reserved terms and words like safe havens for terror only for countries like Pakistan so far. Meanwhile, another wanted criminal was killed in Canada. Let me tell you more about who Sukhdeep Singh was. He's said to be a gangster of the Davinder Bambina gang. He's also someone who's been killed in an alleged inter-gang rivalry in the Winnipeg area. Sukha, as he was also known as, hailed from Punjab's Moga district. He had fled to Canada in 2017 using a forged passport, as many of these criminals do. He allegedly funded Bambia gang in Punjab, Haryana and Delhi. He faced many extortion charges in India. He'd been orchestrating crimes in Punjab and nearby states, as I mentioned, and he had as many as 20 criminal cases registered against him. Meanwhile, Indian-Canadian leaders and forums have raised alarm over targeted hate speech against them that is going unnoticed by the Canadian government. Remember, SFJ, which is Sikhs for Justice Khalistani Group Chief, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, has issued an open thread against Hindus in Canada. He asked all Indo-Canadian Hindus to leave the country. This is in addition to threatening our diplomats, which has been going on for quite some time. Now, Canadian MP Chandra Arya has brought attention to this. He spoke about the Hindu community being in fear and being made a soft target in Canada. Hindu Forum Canada has also written to Justin Trudeau and the government's ally NDP's Jagdeep Singh, who continue to turn a blind eye to such threats that are coming from Khalistani elements based in Canada. The forum has actually urged the government to recognize Pannu's statement as hate crime, and many are asking, how is this free speech? Remember, Justin Trudeau has been talking about Canada standing for free speech and more. But this doesn't fall in that ambit, which is precisely the point that Indians have been making, and neither do secessionism and raising hate against India. That is our next question precisely. Is Canada emboldening hate against India as a country and also Indians, but specifically Indo-Canadians that are actually living in Canada?
Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty. In the strongest possible terms, I continue to urge the government of India to cooperate with Canada to get to the bottom of this matter.
The issue of safe havens and places to operate is being provided abroad, including in Canada. We would expect that that is the main focus. The question is, do we have the political will to address terrorism, or we want to justify it and condone it?
I can't understand how glorification of terrorism or a hate crime targeting a religious group is allowed in the name of freedom of speech and expression. There would be an outrage in Canada if a white supremacist attacked any group of racialized Canadians, asking them to get out of our country. But apparently, this Khalistani leader can get away with this hate crime.
So lots of questions are now mounting for Justin Trudeau and his government from within. There are members of his own government and others who have started to speak out. Let me go across to our guest joining us. Veena Sikri is former Indian diplomat. Also Manan Gupta is an immigration consultant who is joining us live from Brampton, joining us. We're also waiting for Dean Baxendale, a columnist from Toronto. Veena Sikri, I want to understand from you, the kind of statements that the MEA has made today. They are some of the strongest statements that India has made for any country. In fact, they have talked about safe havens for terror in Canada. These are words we reserve only for countries like Pakistan so far. What do you make of the MEA's response?
Well, I think the MEA is fully justified. The Ministry of External Affairs and the Government of India are fully justified in the statements they have made, because it is unconscionable, it is unbelievable that the Prime Minister of Canada, in a statement in Parliament, is accusing India of participation in the killing of this terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in the month of June, without providing a shred of evidence. Not a shred of evidence. The most important point made by our spokesman today was this: there is no evidence. And even the words used by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, credible allegations of a potential link.
Yes,
nothing has been proved. Now, the point is, for 3 months, the month of June, when the murder took place, for 3 months, presumably the Canadian police had been mounting some investigations and inquiries. And if they have any evidence, they should share it with the Indian government and discuss it. But nothing of the sort was done. And instead, Prime Minister Trudeau chooses to make the statement in Parliament based on this kind of a completely unacceptable allegation, based on hearsay, based on a lack of evidence. Now, I think that the reaction, and then he also expelled a senior Indian diplomat. The Indian government was fully within its right to take counter action to expel expel a Canadian senior diplomat from Delhi. But then the point comes that look at the ongoing activity in Canada by these Khalistani separatist groups. Now, they have called for all Hindus to leave Canada. Now, can you imagine that, you can call for this kind of division between communities in Canada, which says it is a pluralist democracy, on the basis of religion?
No, and the worst is that none of the Canadian government members are willing to show the same alacrity on these statements that they show, for example, on Nijjar's killing. I believe we've lost the link for Manan Gupta. I wanted to go across to him. But till that time, I do want to ask you, Veena Sikri, about India taking that move, although they've said this is for operational reasons, India taking that move to halt visa processing. In fact, let me take that to Manan Gupta. Many people believe this is, of course, the Brahmastra that India holds. Processing of visas to be held. And they've not directly linked it to the fact that, Canada has been escalating the issue with India, but they have said that Indian diplomats are under threat and in danger in Canada, which is affecting their day-to-day working. How do you look at the steps that India has taken, and what are the responses you are hearing in Canada over that?
Well, thank you very much for having me, and definitely today's announcement related to the suspension of Indian visas from Canadian consulates and High Commission, definitely it has not been well received. There is a lot of concern amongst Indian diaspora. There is a lot of confusion that what lies ahead, because many of the Indian diaspora, they have OCI cards, which is Overseas Citizen of India card. So people don't know what is coming up, because it's going to be a very busy festive season. People travel a lot during upcoming months. So there is a bit of a panic. But having said that, issuing visas is a prerogative of any country. So India has taken that harsh step today. We don't know what Canada is going to reciprocate. But right now, there is a bit of confusion, anxiety, and a lot of panic.
Okay. Dean Baxendale is also joining us. Dean, I want to understand from you, where do you see this going? Many felt that Justin Trudeau should not have made the public allegations he did, plunging Indo-Canadian relationships to perhaps the lowest level ever. And there's no saving this anymore, because while he says that he doesn't want to escalate or provoke India, the Canadian actions are exactly to the contrary. So one, what do you read into Justin Trudeau's actions and where do you see this going?
First of all, thank you for having me on today. This is obviously accelerated in terms of the reactions on both sides here. I think the reality is that Justin Trudeau, based on the information that he believes to be valid, the Canadian government had CSIS and probably RCMP came to India and probably had a number of discussions with their intelligence counterparts with respect to what they had seen and shared that information. I think that the denial by the Indian government is obviously appropriate. Where we're not, hopefully India is not going around assassinating people. Having said that, Justin Trudeau has accelerated this in the public in Canada. It looks like for political gain. Ultimately, he needs to come out showing that he's actually combating foreign interference and maybe using this in part to deflect from the real issue, which surrounds China and China's infiltration, espionage operations in Canada. In part, listening today to watching the presser from the Indian government, foreign affairs, I found it quite fascinating that he brought up the organized crime elements inside Canada, and that these, in part, are funding terrorist actions by Sikh separatists that have been in this country for some time and have been of concern to the Indian government. So I think that Justin Trudeau and the government has seen foreign interference. India has been engaged in Canada in terms of counterintelligence and intelligence operations for 40 plus years. This is done all the time, so this should be nothing new. CSIS is well aware of it, as would the American counterparts of such operations. But where this goes right now is anybody's guess, and I would suggest that we need to dial back, these actions and sit down again and work on solutions for both sides.
Maybe that ship has sailed, at least as far as Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister. But I do want to ask you, is there no concern in Canada that a lot of these Khalistani elements, which I'm sure many of the Canadian society is well aware of because they've been there in Canada for quite some decades, is there no concern that they issue death threats against Indian diplomats? They're now particularly targeting Hindu Indo-Canadians, and the government seems to be doing nothing. Those threats don't fall under freedom of speech.
Yeah, well, so let's just go back here very quickly. Niger was actually given his Canadian citizenship by the former government under Stephen Harper. So it was not Justin Trudeau that gave him his citizenship. So I think that should be noted for all Indian viewers and viewers around the world. But to answer your question, the diaspora community, both Sikhs and Hindus inside Canada, actually are quite concerned on both sides, and that from the Sikh side, they feel as if the Indian government is leveraging this against them. And they feel very uncomfortable. And on the other side, there has been a ratcheting up over a number of years of what I would consider almost hate speech by people within the Sikh community. And by the way, we're talking a very, very small number of individuals that are inciting this kind of
I get that. Actually, this is not about the Sikh community in Canada. What I am asking is the responsibility to act against those, small number of individuals that you talk about, even if they're ratcheting up the hate speech. The responsibility lies with the Canadian government to clamp down on them. We don't see that happening.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But this speaks to a larger and bigger issue around transnational repression and operations inside various Western democracies, where governments are afraid to confront, diaspora communities for fear of being called racist and taking a particular party line.
Okay,
However,
I'm not sure
don't-
if that's what's playing out here, Dean, with due respect, because I don't think in this case, attacking of the Hindu community is not being spoken about because of fears of racism. In fact that Hindu community attacks are not being spoken about is racism. But in any case, I'll go give a final comment to both of our other guests as well. Veena Sikri, you know, this is fundamentally the issue. One, onus of proof is now on Justin Trudeau's government since they went public with these allegations. And secondly, it is also the onus on them to ensure the safety of Indo-Canadians, the ones who are particularly being targeted by these Khalistanis.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I'm very surprised that your commentator from Canada did not even have the courtesy to say a word that it is wrong to attack people on the basis of their religion, or that it is wrong. He's admitting that there's a very small number of the people who are preaching secessionism for India and the Khalistani separatists. Why can't action be taken against them? How would a small microscopic minority of a group in Canada, if they're taken action against for what they are doing, the wrong speech, hate speech they are making, how would that amount to racism? I think it's amazingly double-sided, the talk coming out of Canada. And there is absolutely no concern, because when their own Quebec separatist movement is there, or their own truckers in Canada go on the streets, the action against them is very swift.
Yeah, and here a tiny minority of individuals cannot be acted upon. Can I also tell, for a benefit of our viewers, that most of the criminals who have escaped from India, the largest percentage have actually taken refuge in Canada. So that's, you know, this is a historical issue that India has been raising. It has nothing to do with Nijjar or his killing alone. But Manan, I have a final minute left. I want to understand from you, what are the frustrations of the Indian community in Canada, given that the Sikh community does not bat for Khalistan, certainly not a majority of them. The Hindu community is extremely peaceful, is peaceful all over the world, not just in Canada. So what are the frustrations of the Indian community there? Why doesn't the Canadian government act on that small minority that is bringing such a bad name to everybody, the Canadians included?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Indian diaspora has been in Canada for 100+ years, and they have really done well in all aspects of Canadian lifestyle, whether it's economy, social ties, you know, political ties, business ties. They have really given back to Canada. The whole goal behind the whole, the whole goals of the community is to stay together in harmony, but there are fringe elements which do cause such concerns, and they have been causing these concerns from last many decades. So the elephant in the room, the government of Canada very well knows. They really need to handle it on a diplomatic level, roundtable discussions, table talks. You know, these are the ways the talks need to be moved forward, because we are seeing a lot of anxiety amongst parents, newcomers, students, and a lot of immigrants, those who want to come to Canada.
All right. Well, some of those will be collateral issues that will come into this entire fight, because the fight has escalated to a level we've not seen in recent past. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Time for us to slip into a very short break. On the other side, we're getting a very special conversation with Naina Lal Kidwai on the historic Women's Reservation Bill becoming a reality in India.
Brought to you by
the comment where you said that there should be parity in strength between the different diplomatic missions. Are you saying that the current reduction in the Canadian mission today was a result of an Indian request to downsize its presence in New Delhi, or was it an active measure taken by Canada to do so? Can you clarify that the parity statement you made?
Siddhant.
Hi sir, I'm Siddhant from CNN News 18. Sir, a former diplomat has made a comment on a national TV a week back, saying that there was always a trouble for Indian Army officers to get visa, those who have served in specific locations in India like Jammu Kashmir, northeastern state, to get Canadian visa. Was Ministry aware about it, and have we ever raised this issue to the Canadians? And also, sir, my follow-up question, E.M. Jaishankar
I haven't even answered. How can you have a follow-up question?
Sir, E.M. Jaishankar is in New York, sir. We have been told.
No, sir. Honorable Minister is in Parliament.
Oh, yes, sir.
Follow-up question called off. Yes, I'll come to everybody. I assure you, there's time. Yes,
This is Yeshi.
Microphone, please.
This is Yeshi Seri from the New Indian Express.
When Trudeau was in Delhi for the G20, did he raise this issue of Nijar whilst he was here with the Prime Minister? Did he make these allegations that he's raising in Parliament, or did this come as a surprise to all of us? During
Who's
the
us?
Us meaning India, because he was here and he had a meeting with the PM Modi, and Khalistan issue was raised over there. Did this come up in the conversation at all?
Okay. Yeah, behind. It's just many hands. I'll come to all of you guys. Wait.
Sir, we also have a e-visa process. Parikshit from CNBC.
Thank you, Parikshit.
So we also have an e-visa process. Has that been suspended as well? And does this temporary suspension of visas apply to all categories? The Canadian Embassy, we are getting to know from associations, travel associations, that they're still issuing visas.
Who?
The Canadian Embassy. Do we have any clarity whether Canada has also taken reciprocal action and stopped?
Okay. You had, yes ma'am? I'll come to you. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm Amity from Business Line. The Canadian High Commission has said in a statement today that some of its diplomats have been facing threats on various social media platforms, and they have also cited the Vienna Convention and said that they would be expecting the host government to provide security. So will there be a reassessment of the security situation as far as the Canadian High Commission is concerned?
Okay. Let me finish that, sir. Kallol, I'll come to this side then.
Kallol Bhattacharjee from The Hindu. Sir, yesterday the Australian Foreign Minister reminded the issue of rule of law, and they believe that, say, terrorists should be dealt through that process. So I really want to know what is the current Indian perspective on that.
On rule of law?
When it comes to dealing with terrorism, do you think that rule of law is something that India would follow when dealing with a terrorist or an alleged terrorist who is away from Indian shores and Indian arms of justice?
If you want the answer to that.
How would you deal with the Australian Foreign Minister's remarks?
I wouldn't, but I'll give you a response to your query. Reza. I'll come to you, ma'am.
Reza from the Hindustan Times. Just wanted a quick clarification about the advisory we had issued yesterday. It had a very specific mention about politically condoned hate crimes. Are we saying that the Canadians haven't acted with alacrity on hate crimes of this nature?
Okay. Somebody else had a hand up? Yeah. I'll come this side. I think this. Oh, no. You had a hand up. Sorry. Apologies. You had a hand up. Yeah, go ahead. No. Yeah. Okay. You want to do first? Go ahead.
I'm Sunita from Times Now Bharat.
Is the microphone on?
Sunita from Times Now Bharat. सर जो कनाडा में इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स स्टक हैं उनके पेरेंट्स बहुत वरिड हैं यहाँ पे उनके लिए क्या?
Okay. I'll come back to this side. Yeah. Rishabh, I just give you anything, but you did a question. Follow up? Okay. Go ahead.
So, follow from my last question itself. Is there any particular reason for the reduction of numbers of diplomat?
Okay. Yeah.
सर मैं जो वैंकूवर में इंडियन कॉन्सुलेट
इंट्रोड्यूस कर लें हम जस्ट फॉर सिंपल
विजयलक्ष्मी हूँ इंडिया टीवी से सर जो मार्च 2023 में हमला हुआ था भारतीय कॉन्सुलेट पे सैन फ्रांसिस्को में उस पर क्योंकि एनआईए ने 10 एक्यूज की लिस्ट यहाँ पर जारी की है लोगों से जानकारी मांगी है अगस्त में हमारी एक टीम भी वहाँ गई थी उस पर कोई अपडेट किस तरह का वहाँ से हमें मिल रहा है
ओके या गो अहेड कृष्ण
Hi sir, it's Krishnan Kaushik from Reuters. So, building on Reza's question, India had issued the advisory which mentioned growing anti-India activities and politically condoned hate crimes. Can you provide any specifics if they were shared or if they are any that you can share with us?
Okay. बताइए आपका या माइक्रोफोन यू आर सरप्राइज्ड गो अहेड
सर मैं मुकेश कौशिक हूँ दैनिक भास्कर से सर जैसा कि आपने कहा कि कनाडा में सेफ हेवन्स हैं टेररिस्ट के तो पाकिस्तान में तो हम टैकल कर लेते थे सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक वगैरह से इन सेफ हेवन्स को आप कैसे टैकल करेंगे G20 की भागीदारी के बाद ट्रूडो की ये सब डिप्लोमेटिक स्पार सामने आया है
एक क्वेश्चन ले ले
ये दो
अच्छा
क्या ये G20 की हिस्सेदारी में जो उनके साथ हुआ या उनको बताया गया कि वहाँ पर सेपरेटिस्ट एलिमेंट से आप नहीं निपट रहे हैं क्या उसके रिएक्शन में ये सब हो रहा है
क्या हो रहा है
How important do you see, as a woman leader in your field itself, the Women Reservation Bill?
I think this is a historic bill. It should have happened earlier. I'm very, very happy to see that it is on our agenda now. I'm frustrated that the process itself may stretch to implementation in 2029 rather than right now. But in terms of the fact that it is a big step forward, I think very, very critical. I should add that at the very start of my career in corporate affairs, I was very against quotas. I believe that those of us women who made it on merit, and if quotas came, they detracted from those of us who had come in. But over time, I converted to a totally different view, recognizing that I was wrong, and actually lauded the SEBI requirement when it came in, insisting on one woman on every listed company board, or at least the large listed companies to start with. And the results were there to see. We went from 6% representation in 2013 of women on corporate boards to 18%, and dare I say, I believe it may be upwards of 20 now, given that the 18% was a couple of years ago in terms of the census that was taken at the time.
I was going to ask you a little bit more about what you touched upon. You know, as far as reservations are concerned, they're always seen as anti-merit. Whether it is in politics or, you know, especially the field that you come from, which is of business and corporate affairs. So when you say that you've changed your perspective as far as quotas itself are concerned, could you elaborate a little bit more? Why do you today feel that quotas are the best solution in this case?
Sadly, the real reason is just the abject failure of otherwise attempting to get women to push and push against closed doors in what is traditionally seen as a man's world. And it doesn't stay a man's world once women enter and demonstrate that they can hold their own. And in our own country, the reservation that started with the panchayats, we have seen how that has changed. And yes, it gave rise to the Sarpanch Pati. It gave rise to women who were the front with guys moving from behind.
Yes.
We have equally shown that while this may be the first wave for women who have got re-elected, and by certainly the third phase, these women have come into their own. And even while they allowed their husbands to tweak and pull and push from behind, their status in society, the women empowerment that came with it, their status in the family, their status in the community did change. And with that change, it drove others to also emulate them. So I do believe to make that step change, this quota, which may well be something which is misused, it can be that people put up their wives and daughters and actually lead from behind. I think that we have to now look much closer as to the enactment and the law, because knowing that these things can happen, how do we ensure that they don't happen? How can we have the rules and processes and systems which try and protect and even more empower and enable women? And what I mean by that is, it's all very on percentages, but are we going to create an environment in which women thrive in Parliament? Will there be a creche in Parliament that enables these women to come in and work as equals? Where are the women's toilets? Are they treated as second-class citizens? Is there comment on their dress code, where, you know, when there isn't on men? So that entire environment has to be looked at in terms of what is right behavior and what is permitted.
Speaking of that, do you believe that these reservations are better as time-bound as is currently provided for, although that time can be extended beyond 15 years? Or do you feel that they should be not time-bound at all?
So I think I like the idea of a sunset clause, and you know, the 15 years sounds like a very reasonable period with the ability to extend it. Because I think once you achieve it, and we've seen this now, say, on corporate boards, there isn't likely to be a slippage away. In fact, what we're seeing is that the better boards and larger listed ones are, without this being the regulation, already seeking 1/3 corporate board representation on their boards, because they realize that that is best practice. So the movement from going from one up to more on the boards has certainly happened. So I don't see the change happening backwards, even in this quota and reservation sort of movement. And I would even hesitate to call it reservation. It is really about rightful representation. And I believe once, and we will get to 1/3 in 15 years, then the clause can go and we can come back into a regime where it is on merit, it is based on women having found their voice to continue and to grow. If we haven't reached there, which would be a real shame, then of course there should be extension of this, including a strong review every 3 years as to how we were progressing, what is failing, and ensure that when we reach that 15-year mark, we are there. And of course, if we're not there, then an extension, but I hope that that is not what we will live to see.
It's Shri Shakti in Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. A rising India, a Naya Bharat, empowered by the power of women and acknowledged the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam.